Okay, so I have up here something from the Congressional Globe, which is an act by Congress, and it was written in 1864 on March 11th, and you can find it on page 1098. What this is telling you is this is in reference to the freeing of the slaves, and it was during the time of the Civil War. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it to you, and I just want you to think about your general perception about what this means. And then I'm going to explain some things to you, and I'm going to come back and read it again. Okay? So we'll read it, I'll explain some things and come back and read it again. And I want you to pay particular attention to what your perception is the first time I read it, and then what your understanding of it is the second time I read it. Okay, so resolved that the Congress of the United States should by positive and effective legislation, and in accordance with the true theory of our Republican form of government, guarantee and secure equality of civil rights and privileges to all classes of persons residing with the District of Columbia and the territories, and whatever, or it may have been wherever else the government of the United States possesses sole and exclusive jurisdiction, who are required and made liable under the Constitution and the laws to contribute to the support and maintenance of a government by taxation and military service, and in the like manner to protect, secure, and defend all persons in the liberty and lawful pursuits throughout the length and breadth of the Republic. All right, so a while back on Facebook, there was a guy who was a jury attorney, and he posted a video that he made on YouTube onto Facebook, and he had hundreds of thousands of people that watched this video. He introduced himself. He told you who he was and what he does and what he was going to tell you. So what he was a jural attorney, and what a jural attorney does is try to convince people of something. And he tries to do it without lying. So it doesn't matter what the truth is, it matters what your perception is. So if he can lead you to perceive something a certain way, then he can convince you that he's right and his side will win, and he can do it without ever actually lying to you. So whether or not they're telling you the truth doesn't matter. It's what they convince you of. Well, in our government, they don't want to lie, but they don't exactly want to tell the truth either. So what they do is they write things in such a way that it convinces you of a perception. So what this jural attorney did was he used a sandwich technique. He said, this is what I'm going to tell you, and this is the truth. And then he gave some examples of those things that backed up what he said. And then he closed with, and now I've explained to you why I'm right, and this is the truth. So on this YouTube video, he wasn't in court. He was explaining to people how jural attorneys convince people of something that may not actually be the truth, but without lying, by changing your perception of something. And he used a sandwich technique. So what he was talking about was flat earth. He says, I'm going to tell you why the earth is flat. He gave a bunch of explanations, and then he said, so now I've told you why the earth is flat. So he's not telling you that you need to have a belief in what he's saying. He's saying he did tell you that. He did tell you why the earth was flat. There's no question about it. And this is just a manipulation technique, which is easy to use on most people because most people don't stop and think. They don't stop and think about what they're being told or what the ulterior motive of the person is when they say it. Salespeople use it all the time. If you're really good at it, you can sell a lot of stuff. So the last explanation he gave for why the earth was flat was that when he's in his airplane and he flies over the earth and he goes all the way around the earth, he never ends up upside down. So therefore the earth must be flat. So first he tells you it's round, then he tells you a reason why it must be flat, and then he's telling you at the very end, so now I've told you why it's flat. But he never really said why it was flat, because it didn't matter why it was flat or why it was round. The only thing that mattered was that he convinced you of something, and he didn't lie. So this is a common sales tactic that salespeople use. It's a common tactic that manipulators use. And let's see, there's if you think about it, day in and day out, we're told what to think. We're told what the law is. We're told what we have to do and what we can't do. How do you live in a free country where constantly you're told what to do, how to think? Okay, we're told by the media. The media's on, the mainstream media is on at all the airports, in the bars, in the restaurants, and, everywhere you go, the doctor's office, the media's on. Okay, we send our kids to school, and the teachers are teaching based on what they know and what they think they know, and so they're teaching that to your kids, and it's perpetual. It just goes on, generation after generation. You send them to college. The college professors, they work for the college. The colleges are registered with the government. Okay, so the college teachers are going to teach what the colleges want them to teach because their job depends on it. Okay, you go to the hospital and the hospital tells you, well, the federal government or the state government says we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do that. It's our policy that we do this because they have to comply with the federal laws because they are registered as doing business with the state, who's registered with doing business with the federal government. Okay, when you take your wife in or you go in to have a baby and they tell you, well, you have to fill out this birth certificate form. Okay, the federal government says we have to have you fill it out and you have to give it back. They never tell you what to put on it. They never tell you how to answer all the questions. Okay, I write no contract on their stuff and give it back to them. Okay, I filled it out. Here's your paper back. Leave me alone. Okay, so doctors, you come into the doctor's office and they say, well, you need to follow the standard American diet. And you say, well, doc, I've been following the standard American diet and I'm overweight, I'm sick all the time, I have diabetes, my legs are falling off, my eyes are going bad. And they say, well, that's what you have to do. That's the healthiest diet. You got to get more exercise. You got to eat less. Okay, I don't follow the standard American diet, and I feel really good. I don't have any health issues. I work sometimes all day long on my feet, and I feel fine. And I'm almost 50. Okay, your friends, they tell you what to believe. Your friends have been watching media. They've been talking to their doctors who tell them they have to get vaccinated. They go to the hospitals, and the hospitals say, we have to follow the federal laws. They go to work. They do all those things too. And now they're trying to tell you, if you have an original thought, God forbid, they try to tell you, well, you can't think that. You've got to do this. You've got to think this way. It's best for the country. Okay, police departments. I've explained in some of my other videos about the positive and non-positive laws. Okay, federal titles for law enforcement, even though it has the word law in it, they aren't made laws positive and effective. Okay, they're contracts, they're business contracts, but they give you tickets. They stop you and they say, well, you don't have a driver's license, so I'm going to give you a ticket. Title 26, also not a law. That's for taxes. Okay, here's the thing. You apply to pay your taxes on a W-4, which is a federal form. The federal government has to use federal forms. They cannot use anything but a federal form. If they use anything but a federal form, it's illegal. So what do? You pay your taxes on a federal form, and when they decide that you didn't pay enough, you got to pay some more, you overpaid, whatever, they tell you, here's a deficiency, a notice of deficiency. But guess what? It's not on a federal form. So that's not the federal office that's sending you that form, that paper, that notice, that offer to contract for business purposes in order to generate revenue, which I've talked about in one of my other videos. Your tax accountant, what do they tell you? Well, you have to pay your taxes. You have to pay your taxes. If you don't pay your taxes, all these things are going to happen. It's in the accountant's best interest for people to come in and for them to do their tax stuff because they get paid. Attorneys, lawyers, judges, same thing. Come in and pay your fine. Come in with your attorney that you've got to pay $500 an hour for. The judges oversee the case. Well, now you're guilty, okay? All revenue generators, okay? And they tell you what? Get a license. You got a license to drive, got a license to get married, got a license to run a boat, you got to have a birth certificate, you got to have a permit to work, to protest, to walk in large groups, register your births of your children, your vehicles, your land, your boat, your RV, your trailer. Tell me how this is freedom at all. People say, well, yeah, but we're protected. No, you're not. You're being used, you're being manipulated, you're being lied to, you're being told how to perceive things in an incorrect way. Okay, so if we look to the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, it tells us, it tells us where the government can do what it does, what it can do, and how it can do it. And how is through proper legislation. Where is on the federal lands. What is the list that they start off right off with, taxes, imports, and all that stuff, okay? And it's all for defense purposes, okay? Okay, so here's an example. People tell me all the time, well, these are the laws of the land. You have to follow the laws of the land. If you don't follow the laws of the Constitution, the law of the land, okay, you're right. The Constitution's the law of the land, but let's properly perceive the Constitution and put it in its proper context, okay? When you take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution because you are a member of the political establishment, a member of Congress, you have to be a member of Congress, you have to have an oath, you become a part of the establishment, and it's your job to uphold and defend the Constitution, which is the law of the land. It's not my job because I don't have an oath. It's not my Bill of Rights because I don't have an oath and I didn't become a member. If I go to a gym, if I become a member in a gym, I sign a paper. It's not an oath, but it's a contract, which an oath is a contract. I sign a piece of paper and I say, I'm going to follow the rules and I'm going to use your stuff, your equipment and your pool and your childcare center, and I'm going to pay you so much to do that. Okay? So they take an oath, which is a contract. They agree to the terms, which is the Constitution, and they get paid for it. They get paid to follow the Constitution, which is the laws of the land. Now, when they become members, they give up almost all of their rights. They keep the 10 Bill of Rights, okay? And they get privileges, which is to use the roads to go back and forth, because the roads have a common jurisdiction between all the states, which is the common power to use the roads. They get to use the roads to go back and forth. That's a privilege. Nowadays, the privilege is that Nancy Pelosi gets to do her hair in a salon that nobody else can go to, and nobody else can get their hair done because we're locked down. So they've made a right into a privilege that only they can practice. Okay, some other privileges, they get paid. That's a privilege. They get to use the buildings. That's a privilege. They get to be resident in the district. That's a privilege. Okay, so they're given some rights and privileges while they're practicing in their office to uphold and defend the Constitution under their oath. So it says, shall be in Article 6, the second paragraph, shall be the supreme law of the land. Okay, the law of the land is not for me, it's for my benefit. Those who have an oath have to follow it. Okay, now there's tons of books and case laws and the Constitution itself that tells you how to properly perceive the words and the meanings of them, okay? The ideas of federalism. But unfortunately, we've been, I hate to use the word, but brainwashed to misunderstand things, to misunderstand what we're reading, to misunderstand what the laws of the land are, to misunderstand who the Bill of Rights are, to misunderstand your rights and privileges when you have an oath, okay? So I'm going to use this because it's, once you understand, it's pretty clear cut to help you understand a different perception, okay? So hopefully this makes sense, okay? So in the Congressional Globe, March 11th, 1864, page 1098, I believe it's the top middle column, where you can find this section, which is one sentence. It's got some commas in there, but it's one sentence, in reference to the laws to end slavery. Okay, so remember, Article 1, Section 8 are the powers on federal lands, and who can make what laws. So it's got a list of the things they can do on the federal lands. They can't do anything they want, and they can do only teeny tiny things off federal lands, such as travel on the roads, because they have to be able to travel in between the federal lands. Okay, that's why they're exempt from being stopped, because if they're on their way to Washington from some other state, they have to be able to travel on the roads, and they have to be able to get there because they need to be in Congress to do whatever thing they're being called in to do. And they can't be stopped because the states, some of the people in some of the states were stopping them from traveling and keeping them from doing their job. Okay, so resolved that the Congress of the United States, so the members of the United States, okay, which is Congress. So not everyone is a member of the United States. Those who have an oath and are members of Congress, they are members of the United States. That also includes military, because the military are under oath. The civil employees, they're under oath. So, but this is talking about the Congress making laws, okay? The Congress of the United States should, okay, so it says should too. Should is an interesting word. It doesn't say must, okay? There's a big difference between should, must, will, can, may, okay? We have to watch out for those kind of words. By positive, that means complying with the ideas of federalism, and complying with the ideas of federalism mean it's constitutional, okay? And effective legislation, so not arbitrary legislation, not some, general BS written on some piece of paper that doesn't even mean anything. It's got to have an effect. It's got to have a purpose, okay? Legislation, which this is the general meaning, the general word. So this is not a capital L, meaning specific legislation. So it's saying effective general legislation. And in accordance with the true theory of our Republican form of government, according to the Constitution, the true theory, interesting, it's a true theory. Okay? So, something's a theory. How is it a true theory? It's got to be, that it sort of doesn't even make sense. Of our Republican form of government. Okay, and what do? Guarantee and secure equality. Okay, guarantee and secure equality, not safety, but equality of civil rights and privileges. See, there's that rights and privileges. Okay, keep in mind, rights and privileges. Okay, the people the members have rights and privileges. The free people don't have rights and privileges. We just have all our rights, okay? Our privilege is that we have all of our rights, okay? To all classes of persons, okay? And persons is defined as a legal person. Legal persons are acting and they're members, okay? They're military, they're civil servants, okay? They're legal fiction. Residing, so that's living in an area. Residing with federal land, the District of Columbia, and the federal territories. Okay, and you'll understand because it says and I couldn't tell because the copy's really old and the print was hard to see. It either says whatever or wherever. I put whatever and then I thought, no, that doesn't make sense. It's got to be wherever. So it's either whatever or wherever. Else, the government of the federal lands, United States, federal lands, possesses sole and exclusive jurisdiction. Okay? There was only one place, well, two places, where the government has sole and exclusive jurisdiction. That's in the Constitution, and it's the federal lands for defense purposes and the seat of government. Who are required. No one outside the government is required anything. Required nothing. Okay? And made liable. No one outside the government is liable. Because we don't have oaths under the Constitution. I'm not under the Constitution because I don't have an oath. Members have an oath. Members do. Members are required and liable under the Constitution and the laws to contribute to the support and maintenance. Okay, so look, this is not comma. There's no comma here. Under the Constitution and both, because this is like saying a citizen of the United States and subject to the jurisdiction, 14th Amendment. You have to be both, and the laws to contribute to the support and maintenance of the by taxation and military. Because in this time, taxation wasn't upon the people. They started taxing people at this time, but this time and before, taxation of the people, which was a business contract, wasn't in any of the laws, and it's not actually constitutional. Remember what I said, Title 26 has never been passed into positive law, so it's not a constitutional law. It's not in harmony with the Constitution or the ideas of federalism. It takes place on federal land. They have to use federal forms anytime the government does anything. The federal government, anytime they do anything, they have to use federal forms. It's the law. But when they confiscate your money, they don't use federal forms because they don't have the authority to do it, because they didn't even have the authority to tax you in the first place. So, support and maintenance of the government by taxation and military service and in the like manner to protect, secure, and defend. So that's their job, protect, secure, and defend. They have an oath, their members, to protect, secure, and defend all persons and the liberty and lawful pursuits throughout the length and breadth of the Republic. So the whole of the federal lands, the District of Columbia federal lands, the territories of federal lands, and whatever else the government possesses, federal government possesses, and has sole and exclusive jurisdiction. So that means the state had to give up all their rights to these areas, to make laws for these areas, to the federal government. Okay? They had to give up those rights, and the only place that they did that was the seat of government and the lands within the state annexed to the federal government for defense purposes. And remember, that's defense with a C, which means fortification, not defense with an S that means vengeance. Okay? So I hope you understood this. I hope this made a little bit of sense to you. And if it didn't, leave some comments and maybe we can do some discussions. If you share this video or share any of my videos, you're only helping someone else, okay? You're helping spread the message of freedom and liberty and our pursuits of happiness, lawful pursuits of happiness, and hopefully educating people to the point really quick. We need to get this done really quick so that we can understand the Constitution and what we're looking at and the laws and what they're actually saying, and we can be in the right perspective when we're reading stuff. Thanks for watching my video. Like, share, subscribe, and leave comments.